Okay. Alright. So I'm here today with Kate and Joe Nolan. And we're here to talk about how they got started in farming. And mainly just to have a relaxed conversation about what you guys did and how you progressed, and any tips that you'd like to add for young farmers. So, and I wish we could, let me see if I can get this, I just love this tattoo that you have.
The beat.
That is so cool. So, but yeah, I got that. So, so now, if you would just tell me a little bit about yourself, and anything that you want to start with on farming. So.
We got into growing food, not really focused on being the commercial farmers. We were more focused on creating a homestead where we could grow as much food for ourselves as we wanted. So that was kind of...
Yeah. The initial dream was just to be able to grow as much as we can eat, and then if we had extra, maybe go to the farmer's market and sell it. We also started quite small. Like our first year, the garden was just 25 feet by 25 feet, and each year it's expanded a little bit more.
But we purchased our property like with the intention of knowing we wanted to grow a substantial amount of food. So like even just picking that property to start, it was a square, and it had been clear cut probably like 5 years before we purchased it. So definitely taking a risk, like not knowing what the soil was going to be like. And we also were, when we were starting, we were focused not just on building the gardens, but also building our house. So there was a structure on the property we were able to live in, very rough, like with no electric, solar panels, had water, which was good. But for the first 2 years, we were trying to clear and start gardens and build a house at the same time. And the first plot that we dug, nothing grew. So the soil texture was really nice, which I feel like is, like, especially after being at the mountains, like noticing. We're pretty lucky, at least.
It has a good foot of a nice dark topsoil, but because I think this is all pine forest, naturally, it's really low in nutrients, especially nitrogen. So we found a horse farm down the street, and they were happy to give us as much manure as we wanted, and just started bringing tons and tons of manure here.
But even before that, we wanted to have chickens, but we also knew that if we could get any kind of poo in here, that it was going to improve the soil. So we had a garden, small garden, and so then we fenced in the adjacent area, and we ran chickens in there for about 6 months, and then we moved them to the next adjacent area, fenced that in, and then that first time we planted stuff where there had never been chickens, just like some compost we brought in, versus where the chickens were, you could see like a clear line where, I think it was broccoli that year, it was twice as big.
Wow.
So that's kind of how we continued to build the garden and build the soil. We wanted to do everything organic, so the most important thing starting out is how are you going to improve the soil quality. And with homesteading in mind, you're trying to have like closed systems as much as possible, like not having to buy stuff, inputs all the time. So yeah, the horse farm, but then just using the chickens to kind of like get as much nitrogen into the soil has made a big difference in how the gardens have grown over time. And now we're getting to the point where I'm putting chickens back in to gardens that, you know, we've been growing in for 2 years. So yeah.
over the 2 years, have you seen quite a difference? Just putting the chickens in and the cow horse manure in, and how do you do with your manure? How long do you let it cook or?
I was doing I'd bring loads of it in the truck and just make piles around as big as I could do, and it came with already mixed. The bedding it was mixed with seemed like a pretty good carbon to nitrogen ratio because it would instantly heat up in the middle.
We got a thermometer just to see, and the piles are getting hot pretty quickly.
So I basically just leave them until they cooled down, which was a minimum of
3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months usually, or 6 months if I could leave it. And then depending on what we were growing, like if it was I wouldn't put 4-month-old manure
on a leafy green.
On like lettuce or something. Or do something that's taller or takes longer to mature, like the tomatoes.
And we have imported some weeds doing that, but not too terrible because the piles are getting hot, so that kills off some. I mean, if we were better about really getting them hot, then that would kill off more of the weed seeds.
Right. But also, I'd rather be able to grow vegetables and have to do more weeding than just have nothing grow well.
Right.
So,
Wow.
But we're also choosing to not pursue like any certification, and part of that's just because we weren't, necessarily intending to sell stuff at first. If you want to pursue certification, then we wouldn't be able to use the horse. You have to buy certified organic compost. You end up having to plan a lot more to invest in your inputs, because everything has to be certified throughout the entire process.
It's a lot of record keeping.
Yes. Yeah. And so when we go to the farmer's market, we say it's chemical free, and people ask, and you just start a conversation and explain what you do, and most people are discerning enough to appreciate it. But yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this: when you guys first decided to purchase the land and everything, did you map out a strategy of, okay, we're going to do this first, and then we're going to expand to this, or was it a matter of funding dictated the strategy?
Yeah,
How
definitely.
did you go about it?
Funding certainly was the primary thing, because we were trying to do everything without having to take out a loan to build the house and get things going. So building the house was just, Kate worked full-time, and then I worked part-time doing other jobs, and then a lot of time on the house as well. And as we had money, we would buy the next thing, get the lumber order in, then the insulation and the siding, and and same with the garden. The whole property was really densely overgrown when we got it, so just kind of chipping away at that. And also we just had hand tools, so there's a lot of lopper cutting down of small pine trees, and just using a regular push lawnmower to kind of push back the brush a little too. And just as we clear a space, then we put the chickens in, work on clearing a new space, move the chickens there, then dig up the raised beds and make the garden. It's kind of just been going along like that.
Okay. All right. Well, believe it or not, we are